welcome everyone.
Excuse me, hello? It's kind of, am I the only one having problems hearing? Hello?
No, it is a little bit low. The volume's really low.
One
Okay.
second. Is that better?
Yeah, now that you're up close, yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry, the volume was down. A little bit. Okay, is that better? Thumbs up? Cool, cool, cool. So I apologize for that. But I want to welcome everybody to the first exhibition of the year. It's two social shows, but showcasing a husband and wife art team based out of Washington, D.C. We have first on camera James Terrell with his solo exhibition titled On a Lighter Note. And then joining us shortly when they tag team the children. Then Shantae Nzinga will be joining us for her exhibition called All the Pieces Behind. From a personal description of each of their works, they're very colorful and rich in color and texture, but very distinguished in their lines and materials. And so I want to open the floor up to James to, introduce himself, tell us a little bit about himself and his work. And then remind the audience to the next meeting and on Zoom that you can jump in at any point to ask the question. We're trying to make it very comfortable, relaxed conversation approach to treatment as dissertation and that you're sitting on. So feel free to jump in with a question. And Ron doesn't name who's written the weird. If you can check the chat for me, because I can't see them for my distance. And you can maybe read questions if someone types a question, but again, online Zoom participants will need to unmute yourself to ask questions. And then if someone is talking, you can mute yourself temporarily for or say something.
Excuse me, Fatima. I need you to come up a little more. It's muffled from my end, and a couple other people have said your voice is muffled, so I'm not really sure how we can fix that immediately.
Okay, thank you. Can you give us one more minute? Sorry.
Why would you be able to see my sense?
Baby grits. Oh, it's that whole chicken thing.
What the hell happened? What am I thinking here?
Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. I apologize for all these changes.
It's okay. Is it better for you, George? What about you, Cindy? You can't hear?
You gave a thumbs up.
You have your mic off, Cindy. You're muted.
Yeah, I can hear. I
Okay,
can hear
great.
now. Thank you so much.
Great.
Jason, can you hear me now? James, can you hear me now? I just got your
You moved a little, you moved back and it's a little muffled. Okay, now,
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, Sudeika and James, because it's all about you two. Can you hear me okay?
Sudeika is muted.
James is not, and he can't hear me.
What?
James, can you hear me?
I hear you, but you're a little low.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine, but I also have the speaker projecting the voice.
The speakers are going in and out from where you are. I'm not sure if
wait a minute.
1 second. Is this better? Is this better for you, James?
can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine.
Okay.
Okay, so I introduced you both, and when I said we're gonna let you start while Sudeika is making popcorn for the kids. So tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe some of the inspiration behind the pieces and on a lighter note.
Say that part again. I'm sorry. The last part you said talk about the artwork.
Yes,
Okay. Very cool. All right. So my name is James Terrell. I'm a painter from Washington, D.C. I've been painting for about sorry about that. Kids ran through the room. Okay. I studied art at Howard University, got my BFA from there. And I went to Parsons in New York City, where I got my MFA. And then afterwards, I've been doing my artwork professionally and also teaching art in DC. I've been teaching art for the last, I guess, 10 years, working from grades K through 12. And this exhibit has been basically about trying to give people a place to rest. The last years and a half, we've been doing this whole pandemic episode, and people have been bombarded, perplexed, confused, stressed out by this whole pandemic episode. So I wanted to show pieces that had nothing to do with this whole pandemic. I wanted to use images of musicians, images of fashion, just to give people a chance to rest their eyes, rest their mind, rest their spirit, and just focus on the bright colors I use to help re-energize folks as well.
so you use a lot of, like, it's almost like technicolor. Is there a color of choice that's your favorite, or do the different colors have different meanings to you or moods to you?
Hold up, say that again, please.
I say you use a lot of color in the works. It's kind of almost like technicolors, enriched with a lot of different colors in each piece. And I said, do the colors, individual colors, mean anything to you, or have special or certain moods that they exude for you? or that you want the audience to pull from it?
Not in particular in terms of every specific color, but the way I break up the canvas is like the stained glass window, I would say. So it's like you're in a church and you're getting the chance to sit back, contemplate, reflect, and re-energize yourself. So the colors don't have a particular meaning per every color, but the colors in general are so bright that I'm trying to energize the viewer.
So you reference church, and one of your professions too, if I'm correct, is a pastor.
Assistant pastor. My dad is the pastor of the church, Second Baptist Church in DC. It's the second oldest church in DC. It's 175 years old. Had an anniversary last month.
Happy belated anniversary. That's a big deal.
Is there an echo when I'm talking or no?
Faintly, but it's
Hold on one
okay.
second. Hold on. Let me change out. Hold on. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, is this better?
Yes.
Okay. All right. What's your question now?
So my question, follow-up question to the church question, how has your profession as an assistant pastor, does that have any impact or influence on your subject matter as well?
Well, it has the impact of how I develop my artwork. Because growing up in churches and stuff, I've seen so many different types of stained glass windows. So the way I break up the plane is like a stained glass window, I would say. The line work, the thick black lines, the metal that sets apart the glass. And that's been a major influence on my artwork, breaking up the picture plane linearly with the vertical lines, diagonal lines, horizontal lines. And then the spiritual aspect of the different musicians, I would call them like, they would be like, if you were a Catholic, they would be the saints of music. But I'm a Baptist, so they don't use saints too much in the Baptist church. But I grew up going to school in Catholic schools, so I had a lot to do with, I learned a lot about the different saints and how people look towards them.
You also have a background in music, correct?
Yeah, I play guitar. I'm a singer-songwriter. So I play guitar and I sing. I've done a lot of different shows across the country. And that had also influenced my work as well. Growing up, my mother had a bunch of jazz albums, and then she had the whole 70s music with the Curtis Mayfield and Jimi Hendrix and different aspects like that. And that helped train me musically in terms of what I listen to nowadays. I grew up in playing classical music, basically, clarinet in the DC Youth Orchestra, but got away from that and tried to figure out how I could find music that related to my own culture.
What's funny is when I was hanging the work and starting to work, a lot of them have preliminary drawing sketches or abandoned drawings or artwork behind them. And one of the pieces, I'm not sure which one, has someone either playing like a flute or clarinet.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Is that
So,
when you abandon the clarinet, you thought you were whitewashing your musical talent.
Yeah, so a lot of my pictures have stuff on the back. So those are things that didn't make it, things that didn't make it to the forefront. Like when you're in the studio cutting the track, a lot of songs don't make it on the album. Same kind of concept. Also, my kids too. When I'm not paying attention to them, they will scribble on the back of the artwork, or actually on the artwork itself too. And I have to go back and correct the artwork that they just wrote on or drew on. But most of the time, a lot of the kids draw on the back of it. And so that is a very funny aspect of art when you have kids that are 3 years old and 4 years old. They love to draw. And if you're not paying attention, they will draw over a whole masterpiece like nothing happened. And many times I had to go back and correct some paintings before they were sold.
Has any of their line work made it to one of your final pieces?
Yeah, so well, they've drawn on stuff that I've actually used and then just drew over to just make it more precise. So there are plenty of pictures that have had aspects of their hands in them. Not the ones that are in your show, but on the backs of them, yes. If you look on the back of many of those pictures, there are plenty of scribbles on them.
Yeah, we've seen them. So how do you determine when something is like a scrap, like this one doesn't work? Because some of the works on the back of some of the pieces,
Say that again.
some of the people are like, I love these.
I couldn't hear you. Say it again.
I said, how do you determine what doesn't make the cut or not? Because I said some of the works actually on the back of some of the finished pieces, someone commented on how much they loved the piece. Like there's one that has a piece with a guy with a basketball.
Oh yeah, yeah. I like that piece actually, but I never got a chance to get into it. So I was going to redo that piece actually. I was going to redo it and make it a lot better, but it was the preliminary sketch and I just didn't feel the whole energy of it yet. So I decided to scrap it and go to the piece that was on front. But I'm going back to that piece actually. So sometimes it's just a calling. I think that when you're in art or whatever you do as a profession, things speak out to you and they tell you whether or not they are finished or whether they are not worthy of working further on or whether they are sketches for something else in the future.
There was speaking on that subject matter, like what determines if a piece is finished or not. There's a piece, jazz. It's something jazz.
Which one is it? I can't see it.
All that jazz. So most of the composition is defined with your signature black line, but in the face, it you know, that black line gets a bend in at certain
yes.
point.
Oh, so
You're muted?
that piece was based off of me.
You're muted?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? No?
Can you try again?
You hear me now? Hello? No?
Fatima, we can hear him. Can you hear me,
I
Fatima?
can't hear you. Can you hear me on the other end?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
No, I can read your mouth.
I know, but she can't hear me.
Zima, everybody seems to be able to hear
You want to
James.
try signing off and then starting back in?
Okay.
Rhonda, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Everybody can hear you, but you're the only one that couldn't hear James.
Can you all, Sudeika, I can see you on the camera. Can you hear James?
Yes, I can hear
Okay.
James. Everybody can hear James.
James, are you still there?
No, he's not. He
I can hear you.
you hear me?
I can hear
I
you
think they
fine.
went out and coming back in to get a better quality.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
So we were speaking about all that jazz. How
Yes,
most of it.
so the face was muted. When I was living in New York City, I lived in New York City for about 8 years. Went to school there after went to Howard, went to Parsons to study art. And a lot of my friends, a couple of my friends from DC moved to New York also as well as jazz musicians, saxophone players and trumpet players. And we would go to different clubs in New York City and see all type of jazz musicians trying to come up during that time period when jazz was really not that focus. It was not the premier music at the time, but they were still young and trying to push into that field. And so the faces were kind of like whitewashed or muted because I saw so many different musicians trying to come through and trying to get famous as jazz musicians at that time period.
So they're not defined yet. They haven't met their signature
Right.
style yet.
Yeah. So the music, so I was trying to define the music as the background, but them as people were not defined as themselves, as their signature sound of music or being picked up as artists.
One of the pieces is more abstract than the other pieces that are on display in the exhibition. It's called Black Jesus. Can you tell us, can you tell us behind that? What's the
Yeah,
concept?
so Black Jesus is a more abstracted piece out of all the ones that are on the wall. Basically, it's based on the fact that growing up in Black churches, I would never see a Black Jesus on the walls of these churches that I would go to or visit with my father as he preached in different churches. They were Black churches filled with Black people, but on the walls, you would see somewhere in the church a white Jesus on the wall or a white Jesus in the stained glass windows, because they were older churches that were purchased by Black folks, but they were originally white churches. And so the Black folks would purchase these churches and they would have the white Jesus on the walls or on the stained glass windows, but would never say nothing about that. So I wanted to just put an aspect of the abstracted Black Jesus. There was an episode, I don't know if you guys know this, you should know this, but a long time ago when you watch Good Times, there was an episode about Black Jesus in the episode. And she had took down the white Jesus off the wall and put a picture that her son painted of Black Jesus on the wall. And it made a whole stir about Jesus being Black. And we know he was a man of color. That's a fact. You know, he was not white. So that picture wanted to just bring back up that whole concept of that, you know, the abstracted Black Jesus.
Have you had that experience? I had another artist friend do a mural in a church, Black church here in Milwaukee, and he made a Black Jesus, and it was a scandal for them. They were pissed. Had that experience yourself? Have you tried to incorporate his image, maybe not this specific one, but Black Jesus in your own church or in a different church, or?
Not in a church, but I've taught courses at a seminary in DC called the Washington Baptist Seminary, which is one of the oldest Black seminaries in DC. And I've taught courses on the history of Jesus and the color of his skin, actually. But I've never put the picture actually in a church yet.
So more of your work are kind of portraiture. Are any of the subjects or, people, identifiable people besides, like, there's one that looks like Basquiat, but I've had people come in, I'm like, and they think somebody's Jay-Z, somebody looks like, who else? J. Cole.
Oh, J. Cole, wow. Which one was that? So I'm gonna say the one with the trumpet is Miles Davis. That's Miles Davis. I love the album Roundabout Midnight, one of his best albums I think he created. And I called the picture Afro Blue. I made this Afro bluish color on that one. There's a bunch of guitar pictures of different guitars because I play guitar, so I love the guitar. And I painted a bunch of blues musicians who were guitar players, like Guitar Slim and Muddy Waters, Robert Johnson, stuff like that. Also, there was a picture actually of Jay-Z. I don't know if you got that one. Did they get there? Of the circle, triangle, square one? Is it circle?
I thought it was more abstracted Basquiat. Yes, that one made it.
That was an abstracted Jay-Z picture, actually. And it was based off the Squid Games. I don't know if you guys watched the Squid Games or heard about the Squid Games at all. The movie on Netflix.
I have not seen it. I've heard about it.
All right, so I named that picture triangle, a circle, triangle, square, because the whole aspect of that show is about getting out of a situation that you're in, putting your life on the line to get out of something. And the whole aspect of how he said he was born into a poverty situation, and that it's like in life, you try to play the game of life to get to a winning side. And he finally got through life, got to a point where now he's supposed to be a billionaire from the bottom to the top. But it doesn't happen to a lot of people, only to a select few people. If you watch that movie, it shows you how not so many folks can make it through the bottom to the top.
One of my last questions for you, and if you can, audience, you can always jump in with questions, don't be shy. And you can also shoot this to Sudeika. You referenced a guitar, and the guitar in that string has significant, right, from your history with your dad.
Say that part again?
I said the guitar has a historical history, like a historical reference for you too, correct?
Yes.
Want to tell the audience about that or no?
About the guitar itself?
Yeah.
Well, basically, my parents didn't want me to go into music, didn't want me to do music, pretty much because of the fact that, or art as well. They said, as a Black person growing up in America, you need to get a job, 9 to 5, period, and do that. And there's really no time for having art and music. Can be a hobby, but it can be something that you're going to pursue. And my dad was an artist growing up, but he couldn't pursue it at his time period. My dad's like 70 now, but at his time period, it wasn't too many Black men who were making lots of money in art to support a family. His dad was also an artist as well, and they had 10 children, and he could not support 10 children on painting pictures at that time period. So they were all artists, but they could not really support a family on art. So my dad went into education and then later on into the ministry. And then he just wanted to make sure that I would be able to support my family. So he didn't really want me to focus on art or music per se. But I tried to find a way where I could do that, support my family off of music, or work with my wife in supporting ourselves in art and music. So if you notice on the strings of the guitar players, there are no strings on them, if you notice, because that's just an aspect of the fact that trying to find your way through music.
And Sudeika, you can jump into this. It can be a question for both of you. How is the leap to full-time artistry I know, there's different avenues besides just physically painting and, there's, talk, teaching and all that stuff, but how is that jump from now, what you were doing before to now committed as a team to be full-time artists?
I think for me, I've always had a side business. So before I even met my husband, whom I love and support greatly, I had my own business. And so, I'm from Denver. So I was Sudeyka Nzinga Designs, and I had earrings, I had t-shirts. I always had like little things that I was out hustling alongside the art. And so, meeting him and thinking about how both of us could be doing the same thing and how that's increasing for our household. And when we first met, both of us were teaching art. I had my business on the side and I was doing more independent contract work. And so, we made this transition where I was like, well, let me figure out how to include the things that he does in the business that I already have established, and then how things that he does can grow the business that I already have established, and and can pull things together for us. So, that's been a really amazing journey that's really solidified, especially over the last 2 years, like when we're both stuck in the house together. So we get more opportunities to like share, our creative ideas and our stories, and like bring things to fruition as a partnership.
So tell
Yeah.
us, tell us about your work. I've intro by saying both of your works are equally colorful and has some kind of line work integrated in it, but it's very staunchly different. I mean, his is more flat 2D, but very colorful. And then you have layers with collaging and all different kind of materials too, and also integrating portraiture. So tell us about your work and your influences, or what you're trying to talk about through your work.
So, I'm a super fan of portraiture. I definitely connect to a time. I grew up in Denver, and so there was definitely a moment where we had that field trip where we're going to these different art museums consistently, and we're not seeing portraiture by Black artists at that time. So, I'm 38. So, you think about 35 years ago, what there was to see in the museums, and the differences, being in the Midwest and being in not a predominantly Black environment. So early on in my creation, it was important for me to tell our story and my experience, but also having like a real keen connection to the fact that like I came from a 2-parent home, I came from the suburbs, I came from like a real mixed community. I'm not from a space of poverty or like gang banging or like those sort of things. And so thinking about like other stories that African-American people can be telling about what our experience is really something that's always been really important to me, like not wanting to root the experience I communicate in poverty and in trauma. And so my work focuses on portraiture. I'm really into the different colors and the different skin tones that we have, and the ways that we design our spaces and how that reflects from our spirits. And trying to tell a story about who we are from a place of like, I grew up doing quilt work with my mom. My mom was a seamstress. So early on, she taught me how to do quilt work. I was sewing clothes early on. And so, you see that reflected in my work. And then, so a lot of the line work that you see is really thinking about like patterns and quilting and pattern creating. And, I think about a lot of my subjects as quilt work and as patterns. In some of the work that's like more, that's painted, there's some work that has like a painted line work that has the drawn quilt lines in it, like the wind down time. She has like the drawn quilt lines, but there's other pieces that also have stitching within them, like the Toni Morrison piece that has like the same sort of sectioning, but has the stitch lines within it. And so I'm really into the history of how we tell our stories in fabric and in stitch work and in putting together all of these different segments that each have different ways that they communicate, you know, where we're coming from and what we're experiencing.
Are there any special fibers and fabrics or materials in some of the works that have extra special stories or meaning behind it? Like, I acquired this from X, Y, and Z. This one was inherited by some person of significance. I dumpster dive and got this, and we went through this day to get this, and now it looks like this. Are there any significant stories tied to any of the materials incorporated in the piece?
In this exhibit, there's definitely pieces that I have a homegirl in Ghana that ships me scraps. And then I have a homegirl in Maryland that ships me scraps from some of the work that she does. But in this exhibition, I think I did more textile creation than textile sourcing. And so you'll see a lot of like hand dyed paper, things that I created linocut stamps for, and then I would create a full textile and stamp that textile, dry that textile, and then cut that textile to interact with many different pieces. So there, I think that in terms of like meaning, there's a lot more of that for me. And one of the things that's really important to me is like, as an African-American woman, right, when I'm delving into the history of the Ankara fabrics, and a lot of the history of the Ankara fabrics is traced back into like Dutch printing methods and, you know, understanding like what the symbols are, because a lot of the symbols are like political symbols and things that like really have nothing to do with African culture, but then have been taken into African culture and printed and changed and transitioned. So I'm thinking about, like, as an African American woman, how do we establish that for ourselves? And so, like, how do I make a print that is specific to the experience that we have? And so, you know, there's 3 or 4 pieces that carry a linocut print that is a fist, and it's like, it's a, you know, it's in ink, and it's a carved print that is on a textile that's built onto the canvas. And so it's thinking about, like, how do we begin to incorporate our own designs that tell our own stories? Because with the Ankara fabrics, I'm really fascinated by how, like, the design can talk about who, you know, you should vote for, or what tribe is of utmost importance, or like there's all these subtle messages communicated in the prints and the coloring of the designs. And so just like, how do we do that for ourselves? Like, how can I make a print that communicates what is the Black American experience?
Are your subjects in the portraits, are they of specific people? I know you have one like staunchly obvious, which is the Toni Morrison piece, but of the other works, who's been identified in the works? And then who is Shantae? What is that piece about?
So the other works are not necessarily built off of specific people, but are built off experiences that I've had with people. And so, you know, for me, over the last few years, you know, I've become a new mother several times. I had back-to-back babies. And so, you know, you get that experience of breastfeeding, and of the piece that is the water birth is literally about the moment that, you know, my husband and I, we had our babies unassisted in our house by ourselves. And so that is the moment that I lifted my baby out of the water. We bought a pool off Amazon and just like gave birth to these babies. So that is about that moment when you pull your baby first out of the water, and about, you know, these breastfeeding moments, and about these body moments, and just, you know, all of these different things. Wind down time is just about, you know, that point that I think many of us got to in the pandemic, where it was like, it's noon and I got my glass of wine, because time has just blurred into all of itself. And so a lot of my work is just really seeking to just like catch these biographical moments, these autobiographical moments. Or the piece with the mask woven is like, I posted that on Instagram today, talking about what it was like. I was standing in line at Wegmans, and a sister drove up, and she had all these African masks that she had hand sewn, and she was selling them to people in the line. And just being like, yo, this is wild. Like, everybody's in the store, Black folks, white folks, all kind of folks with these African masks on, because like that's, and it was just like this weird thing of like COVID, and then this like African connection or like history. So, you know, I'm really into thinking about like the history of what's happening right now, and how to communicate the history of what's happening right now. And so, you know, I think that that's reflected in the fabrics that I choose, but also, you know, there's hand-dyed paper. There is paper that has like designs that I feel are connected to like the culture and different cultures. And I've been learning a lot about, you know, the culture of paper, you know, which designs are from Nepal and which designs are from China. And then thinking about the relationship of me as an African, you know, I hate the term African American. So as a Black American woman, utilizing, you know, these different designs from these different cultures to tell a story of like an American experience. And so I don't know if that all the way answered the question. I'm sorry. I might have gone on a tangent.
Can you tell us about the Shantae piece? Because that one has the most obscure thing. It's like the mask, and the lady is, she be the squatting, sitting.
Oh, okay. Yes. So the photographer that I rock with is I met him because I have a friend who's in Baltimore, and she's, you know, always posting pictures. You know, that's the culture now. She's a little bit younger than me. She's an artist as well. And so, you know, we have engaged each other. And sometimes I just see like moments with people that I find truly inspirational. And so she did a photo shoot, and her purpose in doing this photo shoot is like, you know, she's a very shapely young lady. And I think that this culture today tends to make certain judgments about women who are shapely in a certain way. And so she did this series of photo shoots that she really wanted to connect to her culture, but also connect to her shape and connect to her body, but not in a way that was owned by anybody else. And so she puts out this piece, and she's sitting on a djembe drum and holding an African mask in front of her face. And I was like, I gotta figure out how to create that. That's just like, yes. So, you know, I hit the photographer up, and I was like, I need the rights to this. Let me know what's it cost, like what I gotta do. And I bought the rights to recreate that piece and another piece that my husband did that he has never shown. The other piece that you did of her is in the back in the closet. Like, yeah, no, it's fire, and it's never shown. But yeah, so we bought the rights to these two pieces, and we recreated those pieces. And at the time I was doing a lot of like weaving work. And so one of the pieces, and like, I'm so sad that this piece didn't make it, because this is the second time I have tried to ship this piece to you for you to show, and still just got caught up in like the craziness of the weather. It'll probably come on Monday, and I'm so annoyed by this. But one of the pieces that kind of was supposed to like bring everything together was called Gentrification. And it is a piece that is like woven. It's the whole canvas is this woven piece, and there's figures that are attached to this woven piece. And so there's a lot of like weaving work that is in these pieces. And so in this, in the piece for her, you know, she's got the African mask, but I wove the mask and then I wove pieces into the pigment powder because I wanted it to have a sense of softness. And this is a piece that I'm happy that it made it to you because it got trapped at Busboys and Poets over the pandemic. Like it was supposed to be there for 3 months and it ended up being there for almost 2 years trying to get it back. Like I had to wipe down dust. Like that's how long it was just up on the wall with nobody in there to see. So that, but that's a piece of my home girl. And I was really just thinking about like the mask and the ways that we're constantly changing. And I love how the weaving kind of gives you that same vibe as like, you know, when you have like that anonymity over your face, like if you're talking about something, you're on TV, you don't want people to know it's you, and so it has this like anonymity. The weaving kind of gives that same type of vibe. And so I was thinking about like the anonymity of ourselves as Africans and as Americans. So like I know I have this African part, I might not necessarily be able to directly identify where it's from or what it is, but it's here.
Well, I got wall space for the beautification piece to the right. James, I want to see Shantae.
I'm sorry?
I told James I want to see his Shantae.
Okay, yeah, I'll bring that out soon. Not today, but it's a work in progress.
We just want to see where you're at with it. Can you hear him?
No, what? Well, I didn't hear that.
He said, we just want to see where it's at.
I don't even know where it's at.
So yo, we have like a whole room of paintings that's like, it's rolled up paintings. We have a closet. I had the brilliant idea of like, oh, let's put these paintings in the closet, and then now we have studio visits and we gotta like unload the whole closet so they can even see certain pieces. It just was all bad. Like I don't even know. We're trying to open a gallery out here because we need a place to put paintings.
So a question for both of you, and then again, Zoom audience and gallery audience, you can jump in with questions, but we can close with these if no one has questions. Sudeika, what is one of your favorite pieces of James? And James, what is one of your favorite pieces by Sudeika?
Oh, does it have to be a piece that's there?
No,
Okay.
but you're gonna make us ask, like, show us if it's
Oh, that's a hard question.
I would say first, let me go first of all. I don't know if you can see behind me on the wall here, there's a painting that she did, collage and paint of paper. It's a picture of painting of me sitting on the couch in our house. Can you see it?
Let's see if we can we share? Are we enabled to screen
Oh, yeah,
share?
you share, screen share.
1 second. Go for it.
Okay, so hold on. I'm gonna find it.
We can't see it, but we can't see the details.
Okay, so if you let me screen share, I will find it.
You have the capability now.
All right, so. All right, can you guys see that?
Yeah.
You see it?
Yes, I can see it. How large is that?
Can you guys can see it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Okay, so yeah, it's one of my favorite pieces by her. It's a picture of me relaxing on our couch in the living room, and just shows the aspect of when I was working in the school system before the pandemic hit, of just being able to come home and relax with my family. And I liked how she developed this particular portrait.
This piece is funny because this was literally taken on our anniversary, which was August 29th of 2020. And I painted 2 pieces from that night. Where we went out to dinner, and it was one of the like rare times. We probably get a babysitter like once or twice a year. It was one of those rare times we had a babysitter, and we drove through downtown. So, you know, we're in DC. We're not like PG. We're not outskirts. We're in DC. So, you know, August 2020 was a wild time in downtown. So, you know, we literally drove across Black Lives Matter Plaza, and there was like a couple of people selling t-shirts and stuff. And we kind of cackled a little bit at like, oh, they're selling t-shirts for revolution. And like, we gonna have this like dinner. We're on the wharf, what is that the wharf? It's the waterfront. We have this amazing, beautiful, peaceful, beautiful dinner on the waterfront. Get back in the car. He decides at the last minute to go ahead and take the highway home. We get home. He's sitting on the couch, you know, he's having his drinks, and like I'm going down the stairs. And I'm looking at him, and I'm just like, yo, you know, he looks so peace and like so chill. And we don't often see like Black men look like this, where they're just relaxed and they're just chilling. So I'm like, let me take a picture. So, you know, I take pictures, and like 5 minutes after this moment, we turn on the news and find out that they're rioting about 10 minutes from where we were just having dinner. And so, and like it's on, we're like watching, like the whole joint is on fire, and it's just like all this craziness going on. And so it was just, so this, when I see it, is just a really interesting moment of like, you know, oh my God, like we have this beautiful, peaceful moment. And then like minutes later, it was just like, no, you were moments away from unrest and civil unrest, and like what that means.
I like the piece and I like the story. And then my friend also has an anniversary, a wedding anniversary on August 29th too. So she's next.
Right? That's a good day to get married. I'm gonna show you guys my favorite piece from him. Give me just a second to pull it up, because I'm debating. I didn't get to weirdly this one. Yeah, this one didn't make it, but it is weirdly this one, actually. Okay, so hold on, I'm gonna share. So this piece was supposed to get to you and did not.
I was looking for it. Oh my God.
I love this piece. And I don't know what, I think it's like just the solid simplicity of the t-shirt, and then just the backdrop. I don't know, like it makes me think of an African village. It makes me think of urban cities. It makes me think of just like, it just makes me think of so many things, and just the expression and the line work. Like this one is very complicated and very busy, but it still comes across like really clearly. And so I love this for that reason. I love the colors. I think the color story really turned out amazing. So you want to tell them why you made this?
Hold on. So yeah, this piece was actually based off a famous artist named Paul Klee. I don't know if you know him at all, you guys.
Yeah.
He did a painting called the Castle and the Sun. And so the background of the person is based off of that image of the cityscape he was painting. He broke it up into shapes. I broke it up into line work. But if you get a moment, go back and look at that picture. See it? Look at that painting by Paul Klee called Castle in the Sun. But we were also watching an episode of a rapper named Joe Budden. He has a podcast online. I don't know if you watched it. But in the podcast, he was positioned himself in this particular fashion. And I juxtaposed the image with the background, and was just trying to give the audience a vision of trying to just think for yourself. Use your own thoughts in this day and time. Don't just go by what the media tells you. Don't go by what people tell you. Go by what yourself tells you. So he's holding his finger to his head, thinking about what he should do next.
Thank you for sharing. What's the name of this piece again? I don't have my, it's on the image list, but it did not make it. And I've been looking every day for all these packages to come.
That was the main piece for the show. But the show was called, this piece was called Think.
Okay.
And I do want to say that for the people who are there, we have both had like a strong, like probably 15 pieces each that all like married together. And there is like we shipped them all with plenty of time, but the crazy weather, the shutdown of I-95, those pieces, there's like 4 pieces that'll come on Monday. I'm so mad. But of course, those 4 pieces were the like marrying pieces for everything. Like we really took a lot of time to like think about the themes and what we wanted to present. And those are the 4 pieces that are the like ones that just bring everything together, that like they're the like, so yay, UPS and snowstorms and whatnot.
My last issue with UPS, they busted my gallery windows for the package they delivered a few months ago. So I'm not a big fan of that, but.
That they busted her gallery windows with the package.
Oh,
Ooh,
Well, we are going to let y'all go. Maybe you can.
I wanted to just, I don't know if y'all can see me, but I want to say 4 years ago, I was looking for some Christmas gifts for my daughter. I was on the internet, I was looking, and I came across y'all site. And I ordered some bags and some pillows. And so, small world y'all now in one of my friends' gallery, and it's beautiful to finally meet you. You know, I'm not really meeting you, but to see you in person. I just want to tell you thank you for those pillows and those bags.
oh
My
wow.
daughter's love. So thank you.
Thank
That's
you
great.
for that. That's amazing, because like there were times that like the pillows and bags and whatnot, that was holding down a lot for us, and was really an important way for us to get out to people. And so thank you. I like that. I feel feelings.
He introduced me to your work. Both of your work.
Oh, see, like, thank you. Whoop, whoop. That's one of the big reasons, like, it's a big political thing for us to make sure that we're circulating, support back to our own communities. And, we out here selling this art, and it's like, oh, we could be in all these white galleries and we giving all these other folks 40%, 30%. Like, let's give it back to our own people, and let's circulate our collectors back to our own people, and let's try to keep our support in our own communities, because if galleries like this get to stay open, that's more opportunities for other artists. And important and that's necessary. And so, you know, I just want to take a second to say thank you, and that I'm really inspired by you, Fatima, and like what you have put together and what you have built there. Like, I'm hoping to walk in your shoes, and I hope in 2 years I'll be in my space in DC talking about, so I seen this sister Fatima on the news on my Instagram, and was like, that sis is lit. And that's exactly who I want to be, like what I want to be able to do for my community. So, you know, I appreciate you, and I want you to know, like, we wanted to show with you for that reason. We love what you're doing.
Also, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? No? Yeah. I would say that I guess when I first was courting my wife before we got married, I had a solo exhibition, and I was pretty much done with art. I wasn't painting at the time. I was done painting. I was focusing more on music. And I brought her to my exhibition in Annapolis at the Manica Douglas Museum. And she told me how much she liked the work and that I should keep focusing on my artwork. And at the time I was done doing art. I was working as an art teacher, getting paid really good money. Didn't have the time really to put into the art like I used to do before I was teaching. And so she really told me that we're going to do this art thing full time. And we're now at the position where we are doing it full time. And I would like to thank her for that.
Because he's so talented. Like, I was looking at his work and he was like, yeah, you know, I just do this, I'm done. And I was just like, what? You have so much to offer. And, you know, every man you meet, especially, you know, when you're a single, you're a young woman, every man you meet is like, I'm an artist. And, you know, they show you their little things that they do, and it's like not that good most of the time. And you're like, okay. His stuff was like, he was really talented, and I was blown away, you know, by his work, by the line work, by watching him. You know, I don't know if y'all go back and look at these pieces. He drew each section out in Sharpie marker and painted inside of that marker. So there isn't a secondary line. And when you look at it, and when you really look at it, you can see that there is not a secondary line, that he has so much brush control that it is within the line work of a Sharpie. And like, to me, that is master painting. And I have not, that is rare that I see somebody who I think, especially technique wise, is a master painter. And, you know, so.
Love that. So one last question, someone asked, how many children do you have?
How many fingers you got up? Okay. We have, I'm looking like, how many kids you think we got? We got a 12-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And they're all artists. It's wild to see.
And they draw on everything.
Yeah.
They draw your works too, Sudeika?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
They draw your works too?
They don't draw on my work as much. I don't know what it is about James's work that they prefer to draw on his pieces. I mean, thank God for me.
I've had to fix so many paintings.
Like, they
Literally.
pretty much exclusively draw on his pieces. I think there's maybe one piece of mine that has got, and that it's not even a piece that was like ever finished or shown or anything. But I think that I provide them with a lot of space to draw on other things. And so like, I'll cut a corner, because I'm working with like a lot of like cut resources. So like, I'll just cut a corner out of the canvas and give it to the kids. Like, okay, look, and I'll set them up like, go ahead and you paint right beside me. And Some of the jobs that I've had, because I've independent contracted, so I had a job where, you know, we had pre-K kids and they had hammers and like hand saws, and we were teaching them how to build wooden hand drums, like with saws and hammers and nails and the whole nine. So I'm really used to like working with small kids on how to make their own things. So, you know, a lot of times I try to engage them in that way, so they're making their own stuff and not drawing on my stuff. And then, you know, I think that with Dad, there's like a little love. Like, I think they know that I will drop all of them off at the fire station, and and that's that on that. And you know, so I think there's a little bit more fear from me than from them, than from Dad. But I also, like, I have more wall space that I let them draw on. Like, I have a little bit of ways that I try to redirect them. My son he has started coming. I had a meeting with the Commission of Arts in DC, and he came to the meeting and was giving suggestions on what type of programming he thought they should have. And I was just like, oh my God. And came to a workshop that I was teaching virtually and wanted to do the activity, and talked through the entire 2-hour workshop while doing the activity. So I had to like redo the whole video and everything. So, you know, like there's times where they interrupt things for me too, but I think it's interesting how different it is what they interrupt for him versus what they interrupt for me.
Thank you for that. Thank you for engaging us. Thank you for.
I have a question. Hello.
Okay.
Hi, Sudeika.
Hi.
Thank you, Sudeika and James, for allowing us to show your work here. My name is Rhonda. I really loved your talk, Sudeika, about, you said that your mother was a seamstress, and you made quilts. Do you still make quilts now, or is it just in your wall hang? Are there wall hangings? Do you make quilts for the bed, or do you sew, or what? I want you to elaborate on that a little bit more.
So I don't make quilts in a like put them on the bed sense right now. And I don't sew clothes anymore, because she taught me how to sew clothes, except that I think that I'm about to just like be doing that again. On the pieces that are like raw canvas that you'll see in the gallery, I have really been contemplating like how incorporating the stitch work and putting a backing or putting a like filling into them might lend to how they're displayed. And particularly because like the Toni Morrison piece, you'll see it has stitch lines straight through. So if it had batting inside and it had a backing, it very much could be engaged as a quilt. And so I'm starting to like reconnect to things that I learned how to do when I was a child. And same thing with the two women with the lollipops. I made their outfits and I stitched their outfits. So I'm starting to like sketch out patterns to make the outfits of the subjects and then sew them up. And that's also reflected in the gentrification piece that didn't make it. Oh. And one of the other pieces that didn't make it, which is two faces that are like super stitched together, that are mostly of paper and a little bit of fabric. But so all that to say, the skills that she gave me early on that I kind of walked away from are, as I'm about to turn 38, coming back as things that are very important to me. So I see myself in the future starting to seriously make quilts and starting to seriously get back into making clothes and getting into fashion again. I have 5 sewing machines. I have a serger, I have a heavy duty machine, I have 2 other machines. I have a leather sewing machine. I want that big quilting machine I seen Bisa Butler had with the like handles. I want that next.
Long arm.
Yes. So, you know, like sewing is increasingly becoming something that's more important. And I think that as I grow as an artist, that you'll start to see that reflected more in my work.
Thank you. Thank you so much for elaborating on that.
Rhonda helped hang the show. She's a gallery assistant too.
I did, yes. What I couldn't hear what
I was just saying that Rhonda is a gallery assistant. She helped hang the show too, so she got. Any other questions, Rhonda?
Yes, yes, there's a lot of questions, but I don't want to take up too much time. I really have to say, I love Fashion 2020. I love the way that you did that. What were the materials you used in that, if you don't mind revealing that? Fashion 2020 is the one with the mask.
Oh, okay. Listen, I'm so sorry, y'all. I don't need, some of the times I can't remember what I named these pieces. I be trying to name them because you can't have Untitled 1, 2, 3 through 34. And I be like, I can't remember what I said. So the mask pieces in that were from did somebody send me? It's a combination of African fabric that was sent to me from my homegirl in Ghana, and that I got from a small fabric store that's in this community that sells a lot of like official African fabric. And I was just really thinking about just like that seemed to be the thing that I saw. Like it was like the new kente cloth, you know, like everybody had an African fabric mask. And it was really interesting to me how I almost felt like African fashion and like Black fashion was popularized in 2020 by the masks. Like weirdly enough, like that became like a fashion statement. Like it wasn't boots or a jacket or anything like that. It was the mask. And so, you know, we were seeing everybody in African fabric masks. And I think that I think the masks honestly led to Nancy Pelosi and them kneeling in the kente cloth, because I don't think they'd even heard about African fabric until everybody, and you know, they're in DC, everybody in DC had an African mask. Like there was just a point where like I would go out and all I saw was African masks. It didn't matter if you was Black, if you were white, if you had somebody had sewn you an African fabric mask. And so I think there's like a commentary that I haven't even all the way discovered yet within that about how Black folks leveraged business in that era in sewing masks, and like how we promoted or publicized our culture in the need for masks, because we just had a gang of fabric and like everybody had an African mask. No, not that I can find, but
Okay. Well, we are going to close the talk so the people here can look around some more. And I want to thank you both for getting the works that made it here during this crazy.
We like that jacket you got on. What's that made out of?
yeah.
I got this from a Black upcyclist in New Jersey.
New Jersey?
New Jersey. She goes by
cool.
Her name is Bridget. So she takes everything, and so this is like out of old t-shirts and stuff, and some denim.
That's cool.
I tried to like pull in y'all theme. Yeah, they won't be that. But I'm gonna close the talk. I thank you again for participating. We will stay tuned to see if like a February closing reception is feasible. We send people your way. We're encouraging people to look and purchase. And yeah. Thanks again, and thank you, audience, for participating, coming in on Zoom and giving us time to engage with the audience.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for having.
Thank you guys for hosting us.
Thank you.
Let the kids out. Good to come out now, safe.
Good to see you all.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Stay
Bye-bye.
safe. Bye.